4-year-old Emma Hart's family business crumbles under impossible debt. She's presented with an unthinkable solution. Marry Damien Blackwell, the blind billionaire CEO who needs a wife to secure his inheritance. He's cold, arrogant, and makes it clear their marriage is purely transactional. No emotions, no intimacy, just a business arrangement. But on their wedding night, a moment of unexpected vulnerability shatters every wall between them, and Emma gives Damien something she's never given anyone, her complete trust. Now Damien can't get her out of his head. The woman who was supposed to be a convenient wife has become an obsession he can't name, a presence he craves in every room, a voice that makes his dark world feel less lonely. But Emma isn't interested in being anyone's possession, especially not a man who claims he can't love. As witty banter turns into heated arguments, and stolen moments turn into something neither can deny, both must decide. Is this just physical desire or something far more terrifying? Well, Chapter 1. Emma Hart had always imagined her wedding day would involve love, joy, and at least a small amount of choice in the matter. Instead, she was standing in her father's hospital room, staring at a marriage contract like it was a death sentence. "You want me to what?" Emma's voice came out strangled, somewhere between a laugh and a scream. Her father, Gerald Hart, looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, his face gray with stress and illness. Beside him stood Marcus Lewiston, the family's longtime attorney, holding the contract like it was perfectly normal to sell your daughter into marriage to settle a debt. "Emma, please." Her father's voice cracked. "It's the only way. The company, the house, your mother's medical bills, everything is gone unless I marry a complete stranger?" Emma gripped the metal rail at the foot of the bed. "Dad, this is insane. This is literally something out of a historical drama, not real life." Marcus cleared his throat. "Miss Hart, I understand this is overwhelming, but Mr. Blackwell's offer is extraordinarily generous. He'll clear all your family's debts, provide for your father's medical care, and ensure your mother's treatments continue. In exchange, he needs a wife for legal purposes." "Legal purposes," Emma repeated flatly. "So I'm basically a very expensive legal document with legs." "Emma?" "No, I'm serious." She threw her hands up. "What kind of man needs to buy a wife? What's wrong with him? Is he a serial killer? Does he have a secret dungeon? A weird fetish for Victorian-era marriage arrangements?" Marcus actually smiled, which was unnerving. "Mr. Blackwell is particular. His grandfather's will stipulates he must be married by his 32nd birthday to inherit full control of Blackwell Industries. That deadline is in 3 weeks. And he couldn't find a willing participant in, I don't know, the entire city full of women who would kill to marry a billionaire? Mr. Blackwell values discretion and has no interest in a conventional relationship. He requires someone who understands this is a business arrangement, nothing more." Emma laughed, but it sounded slightly hysterical. "Right. Nothing more. Just a legally binding contract that says I have to live with him, pretend to be his loving wife, and..." She scanned the contract again, her eyes catching on a particular clause. "Wait. It says the marriage must appear legitimate in every way. What does that mean? Does he expect?" "The marriage must be convincing to his family and the board of directors," Marcus interrupted smoothly. "You'll live in his residence, attend events together, and maintain appearances. The details of your private arrangement are between you and Mr. Blackwell." Emma felt her stomach drop. "I haven't even met this man." "That can be arranged immediately. Mr. Blackwell is actually downstairs in the consultation room, waiting to meet you." "He's here?" Emma's voice shot up an octave. "Right now. He doesn't like to waste time." Emma looked at her father, who wouldn't meet her eyes. She thought of her mother, currently undergoing her 3rd round of chemotherapy. She thought of the modest house she'd grown up in, now with a foreclosure notice on the door. She thought of her 2 younger brothers, currently staying with relatives because they couldn't afford to keep the electricity on. She thought about her own dreams, the graphic design business she'd been trying to start, the tiny apartment she'd just signed a lease for, the carefully constructed independence she'd fought so hard to build. All of it dissolving like sugar in water. "Fine," Emma heard herself say. "I'll meet him. But I'm not promising anything." Marcus looked relieved. "Of course. Shall we?" Chapter 2. The consultation room was one of those sterile hospital spaces that tried too hard to be comforting. Soft blue walls, generic landscape paintings, a small table with a fake plant that had somehow accumulated a light layer of dust. And sitting in one of the chairs, looking completely out of place in the aggressively mediocre setting, was the most beautiful man Emma had ever seen. He was tall, she could tell even though he was sitting, with dark hair styled with casual precision, sharp jawline, expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. His posture was perfect, almost military in its straightness, hands folded calmly on the table in front of him. And he was wearing dark sunglasses indoors. He's blind, Emma realized with a jolt. The contract had mentioned it in passing, Mr. Damien Blackwell, due to his visual impairment, but she'd been so focused on the marriage part that she'd glossed over the details. Mr. Blackwell, Marcus said smoothly, this is Emma Hart. Damien Blackwell didn't stand, didn't smile, didn't extend his hand for a shake. He simply turned his head in her general direction with unnerving precision. Miss Hart. His voice was deep, cultured, and absolutely devoid of warmth. Please sit. It wasn't a request. Emma bristled immediately. She'd been in this room for exactly 5 seconds and already wanted to throw something at his perfectly sculpted face. Instead, she sat down across from him, deliberately scraping her chair against the floor just to be petty. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Marcus, give us the room. Of course. Marcus practically fled, which Emma found both amusing and alarming. Silence stretched between them. Damien remained perfectly still, while Emma studied him openly, knowing he couldn't see her staring. He was probably in his early 30s, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or movie screens, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled, and an air of command that seemed to take up all the oxygen in the room. He was also, Emma decided, probably the most arrogant-looking person she'd ever encountered. I can hear you staring, Damien said coolly. Emma jumped. I wasn't. Your breathing changed. You're holding your breath, which people typically do when they're examining something intently. He tilted his head slightly. I may be blind, Miss Hart, but I'm not unobservant. Right? Emma crossed her arms. So you're blind, arrogant, and you have super hearing. Fantastic. This just gets better and better. For the first time, something flickered across his face, surprise maybe or annoyance. Arrogant. You literally just ordered me to sit down like I'm an employee. We haven't even been introduced properly and you're already acting like you own the room. I do own the room. I own the entire hospital wing actually. Oh my God. Emma let out a disbelieving laugh. You're serious. I'm always serious, Miss Hart. He leaned back slightly, and somehow the casual movement made him look even more intimidating. Let's not waste time with pleasantries. You need money. I need a wife. It's a simple transaction. Simple, Emma repeated. Right. Except this simple transaction involves me legally binding myself to a complete stranger, moving into his house and pretending to be in love with him for, how long exactly? 1 year. After that, we divorce quietly. You'll receive a substantial settlement and your family's debts will remain cleared. And in exchange, I have to what? Play house with you. Smile for cameras? Attend charity galas and pretend I'm madly in love with a man who clearly has the emotional range of a calculator. This time his mouth definitely twitched. Your honesty is refreshing if misguided. Misguided? Emma leaned forward. I'm being sold into marriage like a piece of furniture. I think a little honesty is warranted. You're not being sold. You have a choice. Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, my choice is either marry you or watch my family lose everything. That's not exactly a choice. Damien was quiet for a moment. Then unexpectedly he said, You're right. Emma blinked. What? You're right. It's not a fair choice, but it's the one available. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a pen, setting it on the table with a soft click. I won't pretend this is a romance. I won't court you or make promises about feelings. This is a contract. You fulfill your end, I fulfill mine. Clean, simple, mutually beneficial. You say, clean and simple, like this isn't the most insane thing I've ever heard. Perhaps. He pushed the pen toward her, an oddly deliberate gesture. But you're going to say yes. Emma's temper flared. Oh, am I? You're that confident? Yes. His voice was absolutely certain. Because despite your anger and your very justified outrage, you love your family. You'll sacrifice your pride, your independence, even your principles to save them. It's admirable, really. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm stating a fact. He stood, and Emma realized he was even taller than she'd thought, easily over 6 feet. Sign the contract or don't, Miss Hart. But don't pretend you're going to walk away. He moved toward the door with surprising confidence, one hand trailing along the edge of the table for orientation. Just before he reached it, Emma heard herself say, Wait. He stopped. Emma stared.
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. Alright, back to the story.
At the contract, at the pen, at her entire future condensed into legal jargon and dollar signs. She thought of her mother's one smile, her father's defeated shoulders, her brother's confused questions about why they had to leave their home. She thought about the man standing by the door, cold, arrogant, completely certain of her capitulation. And she thought, I'm going to make him regret this confidence. I'll do it, Emma said. But I have conditions. Damien turned back toward her, and even through the dark glasses, she could feel the weight of his attention. I'm listening. This is a business arrangement, right? Nothing personal? Correct. Then I want my own space in your house. My own bedroom, my own area. I'm not sharing a bed with a stranger. Agreed. That was surprisingly easy. Emma pressed on. I keep my job. I'm not going to sit around your mansion playing trophy wife all day. You work as a freelance graphic designer, yes? You can continue, though you'll need to be available for events. He'd researched her. Of course he had. Fine. And one more thing. Yes. Emma stood, walking over to him until they were only a few feet apart. She was tall, but he still had several inches on her. You don't get to order me around. In public, I'll play the dutiful wife. But in private, we're equals. I'm not your employee or your possession. Something shifted in his expression. Interest, maybe, or challenge. Anything else? Yeah. Emma lifted her chin. Don't expect me to fall in love with you just because you're rich and... She stopped herself. And what, Miss Hart? And devastatingly attractive, Emma thought but absolutely did not say aloud. And arrogant, she finished lamely. For the first time, Damien Blackwell smiled. It was small, barely there, but it completely transformed his face. Miss Hart, he said softly, dangerously, I don't expect you to fall in love with me. I expect you to fulfill your contract, attend required events, and maintain appropriate appearances. Your feelings, or lack thereof, are entirely irrelevant to me. Good. Great. Fantastic. Emma grabbed the pen off the table. Then we understand each other. Perfectly. She signed the contract with quick, angry strokes, each letter feeling like a tiny rebellion. When she finished, she thrust the paper toward him. There. Done. Happy? Damien reached out, and his hand found hers instead of the paper. His fingers were warm, his grip gentle but somehow possessive. Delighted, he said, and Emma couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or sincere. He took the contract, and Emma was left standing there, her hand still tingling from his touch, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. From the doorway, Marcus reappeared. Congratulations. The wedding is scheduled for Friday. Friday? Emma's voice came out as a squeak. This Friday? Time is of the essence, Damien said calmly. I'll have my assistant send you the details. Welcome to the family, Miss Hart. He left, moving through the hospital corridors with the confidence of someone who owned the world and knew it. Emma stood frozen, her signature drying on a contract that had just changed her entire life, and thought, I'm going to marry a blind billionaire in 3 days, and I don't even know if he likes coffee or tea. Then more urgently, what the hell have I done? Chapter 3. Emma's apartment was a disaster. Not in the fun, I'm a creative spirit kind of way, but in the my entire life is imploding and don't know how to process kind of way. She sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes, her laptop open to 17 different tabs about Damien Blackwell, and her best friend Riley sprawled on the bed, eating ice cream directly from the container and providing unhelpful commentary. Okay, but hear me out, Riley said, waving her spoon dramatically. Maybe he's secretly nice? Like arrogant on the outside, soft marshmallow on the inside. Riley, the man told me my feelings were entirely irrelevant to him. He's not a marshmallow. He's Emma gestured wildly at her laptop screen, which currently displayed a Forbes article titled Damien Blackwell, the ruthless billionaire who never loses. A hottie? Riley supplied helpfully. A nightmare, Emma corrected, but her eyes drifted back to the photo accompanying the article. Damien at some charity gala, looking impossibly sophisticated in a tuxedo, a beautiful socialite on his arm. Pre-accident before he'd lost his vision. His eyes in the photo were a striking gray, intense and calculating. Riley leaned over to look. That man is fine. Like, objectively, scientifically fine. You're marrying that in? She checked her phone. 48 hours and you're complaining? I'm not complaining about his face, I'm complaining about his personality. Emma slammed her laptop shut. He's cold, arrogant, controlling. Rich, gorgeous, and apparently obsessed with you after one meeting since he moved the wedding up. He moved the wedding up because of legal deadlines, not because he's obsessed with me. We had one conversation, Riley. One. And he spent most of it telling me exactly how little he cares about anything except his inheritance. Riley scooped another spoonful of ice cream, considering. Okay, but real talk? What are you actually scared of? Emma pulled her knees to her chest. What if I can't do it? What if I'm a terrible fake wife and his family sees through it immediately and everything falls apart and my parents lose everything anyway? Or worse, Emma continued, her voice getting smaller. What if I'm good at it? What if I get used to the money in the fancy house and playing pretend, and then the year is up and I have to go back to real life and I don't even know who I am anymore? Riley set down the ice cream and moved to sit beside Emma on the floor, pulling her into a sideways hug. You're Emma Hart. You're the girl who started her own business with literally $200 and a dream. You're the person who worked 3 jobs to help pay for your mom's first round of treatment. You're stubborn, creative, kind, and you have terrible taste in men, present company included. Emma laughed wetly. He's not my taste. He's a business arrangement. Sure, January. Riley squeezed her shoulder. Look, I know this is scary and weird and completely insane, but you're doing this for the right reasons. And who knows? Maybe you'll surprise yourself. Maybe he'll surprise you. He already surprised me by being even more arrogant than I expected, which I didn't think was possible. That's the spirit. Riley grinned. Come on, let's finish packing. You need to bring your battle armor for this marriage, all your best. I'm not intimidated by your outfits. Emma looked around at her small apartment, the thrifted furniture she'd lovingly restored, the walls covered in her own artwork, the tiny kitchen where she'd learned to cook on a budget. Every corner held a memory of building her independence, piece by piece. In 2 days she'd be living in a mansion she'd never seen, married to a man she didn't know, playing a role she'd never auditioned for. Riley? Yeah. What if he expects, on the wedding night? Riley's eyes widened. Oh shit. Did the contract say anything about? It said the marriage had to be legitimate in every way. Emma felt her cheeks heat. But he also said we'd have separate bedrooms. So I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm a 24-year-old virgin about to marry a billionaire who probably has, she gestured vaguely, experience, and I can't even figure out if I'm supposed to seduce him or avoid him or... Okay, stop spiraling. Riley grabbed Emma's shoulders. First of all, your virginity is your business. If he expects something you're not ready for, you say no. Contract or no contract, you have boundaries. Second, he doesn't seem like the type to force anything. Cold and arrogant, yes, but not rapey. That's a low bar. Fair. But seriously, if he tries anything you're not comfortable with, you call me. I don't care if he's a billionaire, I will drive to his fancy mansion and kick his ass. Emma smiled despite herself. You're 5'3". And mighty. Riley struck a ridiculous superhero pose. Besides, I have pepper spray and the element of surprise. They dissolved into giggles, and for a moment, Emma felt almost normal. Like this was just another weird chapter in her chaotic 20s, not a life-altering decision that would change everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Car will arrive at 9 a.m. Friday to bring you to the venue. My assistant will coordinate your preparation. BB. Not, hello. Not, hope you're doing well. Just instructions, cold and impersonal. Emma showed Riley the text. See? This is what I'm dealing with. The man communicates like a robot. A hot robot. Riley. What? I'm just saying, there are worse things than marrying a gorgeous billionaire who leaves you alone. Some girls would kill for that setup. Emma thought about Damien's hand finding hers instead of the contract, the unexpected warmth of his touch, the way his jaw had tightened when she called him arrogant. I don't expect you to fall in love with me, he'd said. Good. Because she wouldn't. She couldn't afford to. This was business. Nothing more. She typed back a response. Understood. Two could play the impersonal communication game. His reply came almost immediately. It's Damien. And you can call me that. Emma stared at her phone, surprised. It was barely warmer than his previous message, but it was something. An acknowledgement that they'd be living together, that maybe excessive formality was absurd under the circumstances. She didn't respond. Damien Blackwell stood in his penthouse office, 40 stories above the city, listening to his assistant Marcus brief him on the week's schedule and absolutely not thinking about Emma Hart. Except he was. He'd been thinking about her for 3 days straight, which was irritating and inconvenient and completely unlike him. And the wedding is scheduled for 11 a.m. at the private estate, Marcus was saying. The officiant is confirmed, as are the witnesses. The press release will go out immediately after, positioning this as a private romantic ceremony. Marcus. Yes, sir? What does she look like? Silence. Then carefully, sir? Damien turned toward where he knew Marcus was standing, his fingers drumming against his desk in an uncharacteristic show of impatience. Emma Hart. Describe her. The contract didn't require. I'm not asking about the contract. I'm asking you to describe my future wife. Damien kept his voice level, but there was steel underneath. Indulge me. Marcus cleared his throat. She's approximately 5'8", slender build. Long dark hair usually worn loose. Brown eyes. Conventionally attractive by most standards. She has he paused, an expressive face. You can read her emotions quite easily. And in the hospital? What was her expression? Angry, defiant, terrified. Marcus hesitated. Protective of her family. Damien nodded slowly. He'd heard all of that in her voice, the tremor she tried to hide, the edge of desperation beneath her bravado. He'd heard the way her breathing had changed when she signed the contract, fast and shallow like she was drowning. He'd also heard the fire in her voice when she'd set her conditions, the absolute refusal to be cowed by him. Don't expect me to fall in love with you. As if he needed the warning. As if he was capable of inspiring love in anyone. She'll be difficult, Damien said, half to himself. Most likely yes. Good. Marcus sounded surprised. Sir? I don't need compliant, Marcus. I need convincing. The board, my family, they'll be watching for cracks in this marriage. A woman who's too eager to please would be suspicious. But a woman with spirit, with opinions, who clearly isn't with me for the money. Damien smiled slightly. That's believable. You've thought this through. I always do. What Damien didn't say, he'd been replaying their conversation in his mind, cataloging every detail. The way she'd scraped her chair just to annoy him. The catch in her voice when she talked about her family. The moment of hesitation before she'd signed, like she was jumping off a cliff. The feel of her hand in his, smaller than he'd expected, warm, with calluses on her fingers. An artist's hands. He'd read her file. 24 years old, graphic design degree, freelance career just beginning to take off. No serious relationships in recent years. Close to her family. Liked vintage bookstores and obscure indie films. Volunteered at a youth art center on weekends. None of it explained why he couldn't stop thinking about her. The contract stipulates separate bedrooms, Damien said abruptly. Make sure the east wing is prepared for her. She'll want space. Already done, sir. Though I should mention, your grandmother specifically asked about sleeping arrangements. She was quite pointed in her questions. Damien felt his jaw tighten. What did you tell her? That the newly married couple's private arrangements were their own business. And she said? That a marriage in name only was doomed to fail, and you'd better produce a great-grandchild within the year or she'd haunt you from beyond the grave. Despite himself, Damien almost laughed. His grandmother Vivian was 86, sharp as a knife, and absolutely ruthless when she wanted to be. She was also the only family member he genuinely respected. Tell her the marriage is real, the arrangement is private, and her great-grandchildren are none of her concern. She won't believe you. She doesn't have to. She just has to accept it. Damien moved toward the window, his hand finding the familiar frame. He couldn't see the city below, but he could feel the vibration of it through the glass. Millions of people living their lives completely unaware of his existence. He'd been blind for 3 years. Car accident, traumatic optic nerve damage, 0 chance of recovery. He'd adapted quickly because he'd had no choice. Blackwell Industries didn't run itself, and showing weakness was the fastest way to lose control. So he'd learned. Memorized layouts, developed routines, trained his other senses to compensate. Most people who met him now didn't even realize he was blind until they noticed the sunglasses, the subtle ways he oriented himself. But Emma had known immediately. And she'd still challenged him, still called him arrogant, still set her boundaries like she wasn't impressed by his money or his power. It was refreshing. Also deeply inconvenient for a marriage that was supposed to be purely transactional. Sir, Marcus said quietly, are you concerned about Friday? No. You seem distracted. I'm thinking. About? Damien didn't answer. He was thinking about a woman with calloused hands and fire in her voice, who'd signed away a year of her life to save her family. He was thinking about the challenge she represented, the wild card element in his carefully controlled world. He was thinking that maybe, just maybe, this arrangement would be more complicated than he'd anticipated. "Make sure everything is perfect for Friday," Damien said finally. "I want no surprises." "Of course, sir." Marcus left, and Damien stood alone in his office, listening to the city hum below and wondering what Emma Hart was doing right now. Wondering if she was thinking about him. Wondering why he cared. Emma couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m., her last night in her apartment, and she was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through every possible disaster scenario. What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if his family hates me? What if I'm a terrible actress and everyone sees through this immediately? What if he expects me to share his bed and I have to explain that I've never? Her phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number that was now saved in her contacts as Damien, husband Doug. "Are you awake?" Emma stared at the message, her heart doing a weird skip. It was 2 a.m. Why was he texting her? She typed back, "Unfortunately. You." The response came quickly, "I don't sleep much. Insomnia or vampire tendencies. Is there a difference?" Emma felt a surprised smile tug at her lips. Was that a joke? From the man who communicated like a tax form? "Why are you texting me at 2 a.m.? She said. The little dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. "Making sure you haven't fled the country. Thought about it. Decided Antarctica was too cold. Practical. That's me. Practical Emma making practical decisions. Like marrying a stranger." Another pause. Then, "Are you frightened?" Emma bit her lip, considering lying. But it was 2 a.m. and she was tired and getting married in 9 hours, so, terrified. "You? No. Of course not. Because you're a robot made of ice and arrogance. You've mentioned the arrogance. It bears repeating." She could almost hear his voice, cool and slightly amused. It was weird texting him. Less intimidating than talking in person somehow. Like maybe underneath the cold exterior was an actual human being. Emma. Her name, just her name, no question mark or context. She waited. "Tomorrow will be simple. Short ceremony, minimal audience. You'll wear whatever you want, say the required words, and then we leave. No dramatics, no surprises. You're trying to comfort me. I'm providing information. That's what comfort is for robots. I'm not a robot." Could have fooled me. Another pause, longer this time. Emma wondered if she'd offended him if he'd stopped responding. Then, "I don't expect you to be perfect tomorrow. Just present." Something in Emma's chest loosened slightly. It wasn't exactly warm and fuzzy, but it was something. An acknowledgement that she was nervous, that this was hard. "Okay," she typed. "Just present. I can do that." "Good. Damien?" "Yes." "Why did you really choose me?" There must have been other options. Other women who needed money, other families in debt. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Emma watched, her heart beating faster, wondering if he'd answer honestly or deflect. Finally, "Your file said you volunteer at a youth arts center. Teaching underprivileged kids graphic design. Okay? You don't have money or time to spare, but you give both anyway. To children you don't know who can't pay you back." Emma felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. That tells me you're someone who keeps commitments. Who honors obligations. Who won't run when things get difficult. Another pause. "I needed someone I could trust to fulfill the contract. You're that person." Emma stared at her phone, not sure how to feel. It was analytical, cold even. But also, he'd chosen her for her character, not just her desperation. He'd seen something in her beyond a convenient solution. "I won't run," she typed. "I promise." "I know. Get some sleep, Emma. You too, husband-to-be. Good night." The conversation ended, but Emma kept staring at her phone, rereading the messages. Damien Blackwell was arrogant and cold and absolutely impossible. But maybe, just maybe, he wasn't entirely a robot. She fell asleep with her phone still in her hand, and for the first time in days, she didn't have nightmares about the wedding. Emma woke up to Riley bursting into her room with coffee, pastries, and a garment bag. "Rise and shine, Cinderella. It's wedding day." Emma groaned, pulling a pillow over her face. "Is it too late to fake my own death?" "Way too late. Besides, I already called dibs on your vintage record collection if you died, and you're not getting out of this that easy." Riley yanked the pillow away. "Come on, we have 4 hours to make you look like a billionaire's wife." "I'm going to be a billionaire's wife. Legally." Emma checked her phone. 4 hours and 17 minutes. "Oh God, I'm going to throw up." "No throwing up. I brought you a croissant. Eat. Emma sat up, accepting the coffee gratefully. Her phone showed 3 new messages. One from her mother, "So proud of you, sweetheart. You look beautiful." One from her father, "Thank you, Emma, for everything." And one from Damien, sent at 6 a.m. "The car will arrive at 9. Where whatever makes you feel strong." Emma showed Riley. "What does that mean?" "It means your Ice King might have a heart after all." Riley unzipped the garment bag with a flourish. Speaking of which, surprise. Inside was the most beautiful dress Emma had ever seen. Simple, elegant, ivory silk that would hit just below the knee. Classic without being fussy, sophisticated without being pretentious. "Riley, this is, how did you?" "I have my ways. Also, your size was in your closet and I have a credit card." Riley grinned. "You're getting married, You deserve to feel beautiful, even if it's a business arrangement with a grumpy hot billionaire." Emma touched the silk, her eyes stinging. "I don't know how to thank you." "Thank me by knocking that man on his ass with how gorgeous you look. Then report back with all the details." The next 4 hours passed in a blur. Shower, hair, makeup, dress. Riley chattering the entire time, providing running commentary and making Emma laugh despite her nerves. At 8:55, Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror. The last time she'd see herself in this apartment as Emma Hart, single woman. The dress fit perfectly. Riley had styled her hair in loose waves, natural and effortless. Minimal makeup, just enough to look polished. Small pearl earrings borrowed from her mother. She looked like herself, but also like someone who could belong in Damien Blackwell's world. "Where whatever makes you feel strong," he'd said. Emma squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and decided, this dress made her feel strong. This version of herself, scared but standing tall, uncertain but moving forward anyway, made her feel strong. At exactly 9 a.m. her phone buzzed. "The car is here." Riley hugged her tight. "You've got this. And if you don't, call me and we'll flee to Antarctica together." "Deal." Emma grabbed her small bag, took one last look at her apartment, her sanctuary, her independence, her old life, and walked out the door. The car waiting at the curb was, predictably, absurdly expensive. Sleek black, tinted windows, a driver in a suit who opened the door without comment. Emma slid inside and found herself in luxury she'd only seen in movies. Leather seats, subtle lighting, and sitting in the corner, looking impossibly composed in a charcoal suit. "Damien?" He turned toward her voice, and even through the dark sunglasses she could feel his attention lock onto her completely. "Emma?" His voice was rougher than usual, almost nervous? "No, that couldn't be right. You're here. You said 9 a.m. It's 9 a.m. She settled into the seat across from him, trying to calm her racing heart. "Why are you in the car?" "I thought we were meeting at the venue." "Change of plans." He shifted slightly, and she noticed his hands were clasped tight in his lap. "I wanted to, that is, I thought." Emma had never heard him stumble over words before. It was deeply unsettling. "Damien, why are you here?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I wanted to make sure you were actually coming. That you hadn't changed your mind. I gave you my word." "I know. But..." He stopped, his jaw working like he was choosing words carefully. "This is asking a lot. More than I have any right to ask. If you wanted to leave, I would understand." Emma stared at him, this powerful man who commanded boardrooms and built empires, looking almost uncertain, vulnerable. "Are you giving me an out?" she asked quietly. "Because if you are, it's about 4 days too late." "No. Yes. I don't know." He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. "I'm not good at this." "Good at what?" "Caring whether someone shows up." The honesty in his voice hit Emma square in the chest. She thought about his file, the things she'd researched. Parents who died when he was young, raised by nannies and boarding schools, a grandmother who loved him but rarely saw him. A man who'd built walls so high he didn't know how to let anyone in. Emma made a decision. She moved from her seat to sit beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I'm here, Damien. I'm showing up." "And in," she checked her phone, 3 hours and 42 minutes, "I'm going to marry you." "Okay." He turned toward her and she wondered what he could sense. Her perfume, maybe, or the rustle of her dress, or the fact that she was close enough to touch. "Okay," he said quietly. They sat in silence as the car pulled away from the curb, carrying them toward a wedding neither had wanted but both had chosen. And Emma thought, maybe this won't be so bad. Maybe we can actually do this. Then Damien said, "You smell like jasmine," and Emma's heart did a completely inappropriate flip. Oh no, she thought. this is going to be a problem.